Picture your spine as a stack of jelly donuts. Each disc between your vertebrae has a soft center. Now imagine squeezing that stack 50 times every morning. That's what a sit-up does to your lower back. Every crunch compresses those discs with 340 kilograms of force. That number comes from the top spine researcher on the planet, Dr. Stuart McGill, at the University of Waterloo. And it exceeds the safety limit the US government sets for workplace injuries. So at 30, the donuts are fresh. They bounce back. At 50, they've been squeezed thousands of times and the jelly is looking for a way out. So when it finds one, that's called a herniation, a herniated disc. That's also sciatica. That's the injury that makes you afraid to bend over to tie your shoes. And that's only the second most dangerous exercise on the list. Number one can actually trigger a heart attack. And the data behind it comes from the American Heart Association, the organization that tells you to exercise more. I'm going to walk you through all three, why they're a problem after 50 and what to do instead. Because the wrong exercise at this age isn't just ineffective, it can end your ability to exercise at all. And if you have a spouse, a parent, or a friend over 50 who exercises regularly, send them this video because at least one of these three exercises is probably in their daily routine right now. And what I'm about to show you could change what they're doing tomorrow. So now I know what you're thinking. Great, another reason to skip the gym. That's not what this is. Movement after 50 is actually non-negotiable, and I'll show you why at the end. But there's a difference between exercise that builds you up and exercise that quietly grinds you down. And the three I'm about to show you are the ones I see causing the most damage. Damage that's completely avoidable once you know what to swap in. So let me just show you the data, and you can decide for yourself. Here's what's happening at your body after 50, and this applies to all three exercises. Think of it like driving a car with 200,000 miles on it. Both cars can drive, both can go fast, but one with 200,000 miles has thinner brake pads, worn shocks, belts closer to snapping. You wouldn't drive that car the same way you drove it off the lot. Your body works the same way. After 50, three things are happening at once. Your spinal discs are losing the water and cushion, the cartilage in your joints is thinning, and your cardiovascular system has less elasticity than it used to. MRI research shows over 90% of adults have measurable disc degeneration by their mid-50s. 90%. That's not disease, that's mileage, wear and tear. So the movements your body handled easily at 30 are now loading structures with less margin for error. And the first exercise on the list targets the structure with the least margin left, your shoulders. I'm going to start with the least dangerous and work my way up, because number one on the list is on a category of its own. So number three, behind the neck pull downs and heavy overhead presses. Rotator cuff injuries affect about 10% of people in their 50s. By age 70, it's 50%. And exercises that pull or press behind the neck are specifically flagged by sports medicine experts as the most notorious shoulder destroyers for anyone over 50. And here's why. Blood supply to the rotator cuff naturally decreases with age. The tendons get slower to repair. Every behind the neck rep is grinding on a cuff that's already thinning. So one bad rep and you're looking at surgery and 6 months of rehab minimally. So what to consider instead? Front pull downs and face pulls. So same muscles, zero rotator cuff risk. Now that one damages your shoulders over time, but the next exercise on the list can damage your spine in a single session. So number two, sit-ups and crunches. I already mentioned it. This is the one on the thumbnail. And you already know what it does to your spine. We covered that at the top. But here's what sealed it for me. The US Army found that 56% of all fitness test injuries came from sit-up. They banned them, replaced them with planks. The Marines did the same, the Navy too. If sit-ups are too dangerous for 22-year-old soldiers, what are they doing to your 55-year-old spine? And look, I know I'm stacking a lot of bad news right out front here. But bear with me because the fix for all three is actually simpler than the problem. What to consider instead of sit-ups? Planks, dead bugs, and bird dogs. So the stronger core, zero spinal compression. Start with 20-second holds and build from there. Now, sit-ups damage your spine, but number one on this list doesn't just cause an injury, it can cause a medical emergency. And I'm talking about all-out sprinting and high-impact cardio when you're deconditioned. The American Heart Association published a scientific statement confirming this. Vigorous exercise carries a higher relative risk of sudden cardiac death and heart attack during exertion, and the absolute incidence is highest in adults between 40 and 64. That's the AHA, the organization that tells you to exercise more warning you about the intensity of that exercise. The risk is highest in people who are habitually sedentary and then go all out. This is the weekend warrior who joins a boot camp, the guy who decides to sprint off holiday weight. The gap between your couch and a full sprint is the most dangerous distance in fitness. So what to consider instead? Start where you are. Walk first, build to brisk walking, then light jogging, ramp up over 4 to 6 weeks. Swimming, cycling, and elliptical can give you cardio without the joint destruction or the cardiac spike. But here's what I really need you to hear, because this is the most important part of the entire video. So listen up. The most dangerous exercise after 50 isn't sit-ups, it isn't sprinting. It's no exercise at all. A 2024 study following over 2,500 older adults found that 20% of inactive people progressed to sarcopenia within just 4 years. So that's the age-related loss of muscle mass that steals your independence. It puts people in wheelchairs. It makes you too weak to carry groceries, too unsteady to recover from a fall. The only thing that prevents it is consistent movement. Now, what if you've been doing these exercises for 20 years and you feel fine? Look, bodies are resilient, but resilience has a limit. And after 50, that limit gets closer every year. The smartest move isn't to panic, it's to swap. Replace the 3 exercises I just showed you with the alternatives. You protect yourself going forward without giving up a single benefit. And here's the roadmap I walk through with my own patient. First, swap your core work. Planks instead of crunches. Dead bugs instead of sit-ups. Same muscle activation, 0 spinal compression. Second, swap your pull-ups. Front pull downs instead of behind the neck pull down. So face pulls for rear delts. If you're pressing overhead, try landmine presses. And third, if you've been sedentary, ramp up gradually. Walk before you jog. Jog before you run. Give yourself 4 to 6 weeks of base building before any intensity. And fourth, get a movement screening. A physical therapist can identify your specific weak points. Generic programs don't account for your body's history. And fifth, never skip the warm-up. 10 minutes of mobility work before every session. That's non-negotiable at this age. Now, here's one more thing I want to share. And I can't fully prove this yet, but after 20 years of seeing patients that conventional medicine couldn't help, here's what I think is happening. Chronic pain from bad exercise form creates low-grade inflammation. That inflammation doesn't stay in your joint. I believe it's contributing to the brain fog and cognitive sluggishness that so many of my patients over 50 report. Fix the exercise, reduce the pain signal, and I've seen the fog start to lift. The research hasn't fully connected those dots yet, but the clinical pattern is hard to ignore. This is not your fault. Nobody taught you this. Nobody told you the exercises you learned at 20 would turn against you at 50. The fitness industry sells intensity, not longevity, and most doctors don't get nearly enough training and exercise prescription to warn you. And that's actually a big part of why I started looking into what else we're getting wrong about health after 50, especially what's happening in the brain. Because the same way your joints respond differently to stress at this age, your brain does too. And the way most people try to support their brain after 50 has the same problem. The delivery method isn't reaching what it needs to reach, which is exactly what I break down in this video right here, why what you're doing for your brain might not be getting there, and what the research says actually works. Because at the end of the day, it's all the same principle. Move smart, supplement smart, and stop assuming that what worked at 30 still works in your 50s. Your body changed, your approach should too.